Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the next episode of CAOverwatch.
The Toronto Defiant will not be denied.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of CAOverwatch. We got an exciting news roundup for you today. Going to talk about some interesting stuff that's happened over the past week in the Toronto Defiant and Overwatch sphere. But before we get started, really quickly, we wanted to give our condolences to Maurice Henriquez from the one of the pro players for Florida Mutineers and Call of Duty League. On his recent passing today. So before we get started, just wanted to say condolences on that part.
Yeah, I mean, super sad thing, for the entire gaming community as a whole. And again, just condolences go out to his friends and family. But yeah, with that out of the way, we just want to start it. But with that out of the way, we do have some Overwatch news to talk about on a little bit more, uplifting note. And that is, of course, that we are bringing Beast back to the Toronto Defiant, which is extremely exciting. If you're a Toronto Defiant fan, you, of course, know him from last year. And also, we're diving into the rumor mill a little bit from our friends at Ready Set Pwn, sort of leaking / I don't know if it's confirmation. Their tweet's a little vague, but little breadcrumbs that Agilities might actually end up going to the Vancouver Titans. So there's Canadian Overwatch all around, former Toronto Defiant, potential future Vancouver Titan. We shall see. So with that out of the way, let's just jump right into things, and that of course is topic number one, which is Beast coming back to Toronto. Something that we had mentioned, right? When the offseason started, we brought Leon Master on. We had talked about the potential of him sort of coming back to Toronto, being one of those players who maybe Toronto would give another crack at next year. Showed some glimpses of brilliance, but a little bit inconsistent. Leon Master actually had the opinion that we might try to sell him to another team. But, of course, when the offseason started, the team sort of gave him a goodbye tweet, which led a lot of people to sort of speculate that he was, no longer going to be with the team. However, things seem to have changed. Toronto officially welcomed him back pending league approval, but that, of course, means he's coming back. So, Chris, sort of just, a little bit of a roller coaster for Beast and Toronto Defiant fans the last couple of weeks. But what are your thoughts on this? He's coming back and, just give me your opinion.
Yeah, you know what? I'm super excited that he is coming back. Good to have peace of mind that he's come back to. I'm sure his mother too, Deb Den. She's really active on Twitter, so I'm sure she's happy too. Okay, look, there's scenarios here where this is a good pickup. There's scenarios where this is a bad pickup. Good pickup, and what I'm hoping is what it's going to be is that he is either playing as a bench player, especially off the start, or he's playing in a very specific role. If they pick up another main tank. That's a more senior main tank. I see this as a good pickup. We'll get into it more later. But if they're picking up Beast and another flex support and that's it for tanks, what they did at the start of last year, not good at all. I am not happy with it. So get into more details, Spencer. What are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I would say I'm not happy with it. It wouldn't necessarily be sort of with what we've been hearing from the Toronto Defiant, which is, they're sort of not in win now mode. Obviously, Adam came on the show and talked about this 2-year plan, but they've made it pretty clear they want to be competitive and they want to win, right? He's mentioned that, he wasn't happy with the Toronto Defiant's performances the last couple of years and how these fans deserve, some victories. And I would agree with him, of course. And when you signed KDG, I sort of thought that we were going in this win now kind of direction. Not win now, but they mentioned they were one of the higher spending teams, so I was expecting them to put forth a top tier roster. Now, they might not be the next San Francisco Shock. I don't think anybody was expecting them to be, but ideally, it's a roster that you think could be somewhat competitive with the top teams in NA, whether it be San Francisco, Dallas, Philly, Washington, maybe, who knows. And the initial two signings of Logix and Beast, I think, have some people sort of scratching their heads because when you talk about these top teams in NA and you talk about the people on the Dallas field, the San Francisco Shock, the Philadelphia Fusion, and then you mentioned, Logix and Beast, and that might not necessarily, match up with sort of your expectations. But I think what's important to really mention here is exactly what you were saying earlier, which is let's wait and see what the roster is. Because, and I watched the Platchet episode today, and they were like, very, very critical of Beast and this pickup. And I think some people are jumping the gun a little bit. Some people on Twitter were the same way. It's a couple of things. Like, let's wait and see who the pieces that they surround Beast are. I agree that I think he should be paired alongside another main tank, ideally one that's a little bit more senior, has a little bit more leadership capabilities. We know that was one of the weaknesses with him last year. So if you could pair him up and have him learn under somebody, I think that would set you up much better for success. Or what you'd mentioned earlier about playing this sort of specific role, which is in everyone talks about how good his monkey and how good his ball is. You know, that was Baroy came on the show early last year and talked about how impressed he was. Multiple people have mentioned to me, both, on air or behind the scenes about how talented he is from a monkey or a ball perspective. Personally, I always thought his Reinhardt was a little bit better. I know we're in the bit of a minority in that regard, but I still think that he can be a capable Reinhardt or Orisa player. So either you pair him alongside somebody who you think he can, replace in a couple of years, or you make him just like a monkey ball specialist and you pair him alongside somebody who can play Reinhardt and Orisa, aka Super, aka, you know what I mean? For like somebody like that, right? Where you get them in sort of that regard. So that's where I sort of see this pickup. We also know KDG has like a history of larger rosters. So again, that kind of goes along the same line of thinking of he's not going to be the only main tank. We know KDG has a really good history in terms of scouting and developing main tanks. I believe he was the one who, I might be mistaken here, but I believe he was the one who scouted and picked up Marvel from Seoul Dynasty. Was he not? Was that not 2019 where he brought them up on like the B squad and they sort of took over after Fisher left? Maybe I'm wrong. He was there in 2018, but I don't think he was. I'm pretty sure he was the one who brought Marvel on. And regardless, you looked at Sato in Philadelphia this year, and he definitely had one of his best performances. So clearly he does well with main tanks. Another thing that needs to be stated is people are acting like we just re-signed him, right? Like we didn't. Like it's not like we looked at Beast's performance last year and just immediately re-picked him up. Like Adam came on the show and mentioned that they had trial processes across Korea, Europe, and North America. And for Beast, he says in the interview, he goes, some of the Toronto players who were previously signed with us are in those trials. I think it becomes pretty clear that Beast probably had really good trials. So it's not like people are saying he doesn't deserve this opportunity. Like I think he very clearly proved himself once again in these trials, just how talented he is, because it's weird to me that everybody keeps telling me how talented he is, whether it be Baroy comes on the show and talks about how he's one of the best monkey ball players in North America. When Lil Bo got released, and he was talking about Beast, that's exactly what he said at the end of the season about how talented Beast was. But he just lacked like leadership. Adam came on the show earlier in the year, said the exact same thing. So, and now that he goes through trials and gets repicked up again, I think it just sort of like reinforces this idea that like, guys, he is a really talented main tank. I think last year was a little bit of an off year. There was some leadership issues going on in that team. And I think that when he was on last year, he was actually a really good player. Like, I don't think he was this sort of wishy-washy main tank that some people make him out to be. I actually think he was pretty good. I think there's some other people in the team that didn't necessarily fit. But I'm excited to see what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, exactly, Spencer. And I think that's what we've been hearing a lot from in the scenes, inside the scenes, as well as talking with Adam on our podcasts and hearing what other people say, is that they brought him on initially last year, in the knowledge that he would have leadership and he would be able to grow with the rest of the main takes around him. And unfortunately, he didn't have that leadership that he needed to grow and thrive. And that's why he initially, didn't look as marvelous as people are making him out to be. But, for me, he reminds me of, any rookie in most other sports, your football, hockey, stuff like that, is that, they have that raw talent that's there. They just need they just need a good support structure to hone it around. And that's, why we think that it makes sense, that one of the scenarios is that they bring Beast on to help develop him with a more senior main tank. And I think there are a couple scenarios. So I think, we either bring on a main tank that, is there to kind of help mentor Beast and is still good, but help mentor Beast. And so he, almost takes over in year 2 or 3. Or I see, Toronto Defiant almost doing a money play where they bring on a younger main tank that they want to keep in the forefront for longer, but that can help develop Beast, and then they sell off Beast for a higher price next year. So for me, those are two scenarios that seem like most likely at this point.
Yeah, and I think I can understand against some people's frustrations. I think when especially when Mono was picked up by Philadelphia Fusion, I think a lot of people thought that, okay, Sato's coming to Toronto. Like, that made a ton of sense, right? Sato has a history playing with KDG, had one of his best seasons to date under KDG, Sato has a history of playing with mixed rosters, you know. And obviously, I think Mono and Sato on the same team doesn't really make sense. Like, if your tank line's Mono, Poco, Fury, Sato, I'd be like, what the hell are you doing? Like, share the wealth, right? Like, I mean, I think Fury is a free agent, but still, having Mono and Sato on the same team doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? They're just too talented. I think both of them would want to be that full-time starting position. So I think some fans' expectation we're going to get Sato, and then they woke up to we've re-signed Beast, and I can understand why there'd be a little bit of disappointment with that. And I don't know if you really would want both Sato and Beast, because I do think that if you wanted somebody for Beast to take the mantle over, like Sato's only 21, like Sato could be your main tank for the next 3, 4, 5 years if you sign him, right? So I don't necessarily know why that would be the case, but to your point, maybe it is. Like, you bring Sato on, you have Beast learn under Sato, and if after year 1 you think to yourself, hey, I think Beast can step into a starting role, do you just like then sell Sato for more money because you assume he's still going to have a really good year, right? Like, or do you try to like big brain this or sell Beast? Exactly, either or. But I think that you'd probably be, his value would be more, if he was on the bench, it'd be probably more valuable than as a future starter than someone who's already established. But you know what I'm trying to say? Regardless, I agree. Like, it could be some big brain play. Like, you could have both Sato and Beast together. It's just like, I just was surprised at how many people were so down on Beast after the last year. Like, I mean, again, like, we covered Toronto all year long. Never once did we really sit there and think that Beast was the problem. Now, in terms of shot calling and leadership, maybe, but man, his play on Reinhardt was pretty impressive. Like, he showed flashes of brilliance, and I was more disappointed with Nevix throughout the year. I think this team never really fit the meta well. Like, at the beginning of the year, Agilities had to play the Mei, and that wasn't really his style. I think Helix didn't necessarily work as a main support. I know he saw some success on British Hurricane, but I still wasn't impressed with him when he was on the Defiant, and like, I would love to see him with a better coordinated team with some better coaching. I think Beast can really be good. I genuinely think he can be a good main tank.
Yeah, and I think that the expectation was set when we were going into that year last year that he wasn't going to be there for the shot calling leadership. Yeah. I think you disagree with me on this point coming up, but I think that signing Beast is an indication, not a definite, but an indication that KDG is going to go and get another Western or well versed, knows English fluently main tank, because I can't see well, like I said, this indication, I'm not saying it's a definite thing, but it's harder for me to see somebody as a mentor figure that doesn't share a good comprehensive knowledge of the English language and still being able to kind of teach Beast very well. And I know you disagree with me on this, so let me know why. Why do you disagree?
Well, I just think that there's more to mentorship than just your ability to truly, like, I don't know, like, fluently have a conversation in the same language. Like, I think that, obviously Sato has a history of playing with mixed rosters, right? He's been on Philadelphia for 3 years now, I believe. And I think that, like, when it comes to leadership, there's other ways in which you can, like, mentor somebody. And I think just showing them, like, the ability to grind and, like, talking through specific strategies. And KDG obviously is fluent in both. Like, he can sort of be the moderator between the two. I still think there's other ways that you can make Beast and Sato work. So, I mean, I don't fully agree with that. Another point to bring up is, Leon actually tweeted this. Leon Master, if you guys don't know him, you should follow him on YouTube and check him out. He's he does some really good content. But the potential to bring back Bianca, because Beast and Bianca did play together for Fusion Universities. Obviously, Bianca, I think is one of the best up-and-coming off-tanks in the league. He didn't quite have the rookie season of, like, a Krong or a Hanbin, but I think part of that was the team he played on. Obviously, the London Spitfire were a little bit underwhelming this year, especially in APAC, but I still think Bianca has a ton of untapped potential. So I could see the a potential Beast and Bianca tank line doing really, really well. And Sato Bianca is really, really interesting. So again, before people, I saw like Plat Chat, they were losing their mind, and I was like, guys, like KDG specifically picked this player. Like that tweet I put out there of, hey, we're doing trials in North America, Europe, Korea. This probably means that Beast had a really good trials. KDG liked that tweet. Adam came on our show and said KDG has autonomy of this roster. If he doesn't want somebody, they're not going to sign him. Like, obviously, they want to be in on the conversations, but at the end of the day, it's KDG's decision. So they'd sort of talked about, was this the organization being like, hey, bring somebody back, the fans are upset, and I don't think it was. we'll try to get KDG or Glitch on or somebody on, before the season starts to talk about their thought process on how they selected these players. But I guarantee you, not guarantee, but I'm 99% sure that it was their decision to select Beast and not the management forcing them to do it. But maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. That's my opinion.
Maybe you're wrong. I think we did this topic justice. So the next thing I want to move on to is the alleged signing of Agilities. So shout out to Reset Pone for giving us some breadcrumbs on this. I'll read out their tweet verbatim and then we'll chat about it. So just like Kevin Flynn in Tron, this, in quote, old man's about to knock on the sky and listen to the sound, unquote. But word has it, Agilities could be on his way to the West Coast to join Vancouver Titans, #Force Nature. Tell me, Spencer, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be Chris who wrote that tweet, right? I mean, Tron from 73. That sounds like Light Force. Yeah, obviously they're not known. Hey, like, listen, Ready Set Pone is, they do like the Vancouver Titans. They've done some Toronto Defiant stuff too recently, but they're not known as like these like leak-centric people, like Halo, for instance, or some, management or whoever behind the scenes, like Jacob Wolf or somebody like that. So I'm not going to say it's confirmed, but with that being said, I know the people behind Ready Set Pone. You know what I mean? I look at it from our position. We're kind of in similar spots. Like, I feel like if these guys are tweeting that and they're putting their brand out there, like, I feel like they know what they're talking about. And I do feel like they'd have some connections or some people behind the organization. So even though it's not confirmed, I think it's a pretty solid rumor. Like, I wouldn't, just dismiss this. I think that this is a really good, a legitimate sort of, tweet by them. So in terms of what do I think it's actually a pretty good fit. I think, the joke sort of surrounding this team was maybe they're going to try to be the Toronto Defiant of this year and just kind of go like Team Canada and try to bring on a bunch of Canadian fans. They already have Rolf and Shredlock. So I think bringing in somebody like Agilities to sort of fill out that flex role, especially alongside somebody like Dalton, is smart. I think Agilities can fill a role. I still think they need to round out that DPS because Dalton and Agilities in itself, I think, is pretty underwhelming. You need a little bit more firepower, but also just like Agilities hero pool, I think is pretty niche at this point. You know what it is, right? It's Genji, it's Doomfist, it's Pharah. It's Hog, I guess, also too, apparently. But I wouldn't, if it becomes another Mei meta or something like that, I think you're in a little bit of trouble. So I do think they need to go out there and try to pick somebody else up. But in terms of just, do they need a Genji player? Yes, they do. Is Agilities Canadian? Yes, it is. And as a former Toronto Defiant, as a Defiant fan, and somebody who, just really enjoys to see Canadians succeed in the Overwatch League, it does make me a little bit more interested in the Vancouver, next year. And are they going to be the team that picks up Note? Are they going to be a team that picks up Crimzo or Icy? We'll see. So I think it's a good fit. I think it's a bit of a publicity play. I don't think that this team is going to be a contender, but we'll see.
Exactly. And I totally agree. I don't have anything else to add there. So last two things we're going to cover today, Nevix and Surefour, they announced that they are taking breaks from the game, not retiring. Let's be clear about that, but taking breaks. Spencer, does it make sense to you?
Yeah. I think, Surefour, his stream's so popular, and I think it became pretty clear that his mental wasn't fully in it by the end of the year, at least, whether that be a COVID thing or just the state of the game, whatever it was, hero pools, who knows. So I'm happy.
Said mental wasn't good for 3 years too.
Yeah, I know, which is interesting. So hey, listen, if he's not in it, he's just not in it, right? Like, he's so successful. I think he's a great person. I don't know him personally, but his stream is really entertaining. I think that's going to do really well. I wish him nothing but the best. I think it was time for him to, because I did think he could, like I said, just grow that content creation game and set him up really long term. Nevix, I think, also makes sense. Nevix, I thought maybe could go to contenders and maybe get himself back on a different team. Again, I think that when you have somebody like Nevix and you have somebody like Beast, who both sort of lack the divisive sort of shot calling and leadership capabilities, I think both could have actually worked really well, just alongside different components, right? Like Nevix alongside a more vocal, decisive main tank, and maybe Beast alongside a more vocal, decisive off tank. So I was kind of hoping to maybe see him trying to make a run back, but I was underwhelmed him this year. And if, again, he said he wasn't really enjoying the game, and if that's what's best for his mental health, then by all means, like, I'd support it, right? So I still think there's potential for both of them to come back, but hey, like, they had, I loved watching them play, so I wish him nothing but the best.
Yeah, same. I wish him nothing but the best. And I hope that we see at least one of them, if not both of them, come back next year with kind of renewed purpose and have them succeed, you know, in the coming year after that. So hey, anything else you want to touch on, Spencer, before we go now?
No, final thoughts is, hey man, for everybody out there panicking, just wait until Toronto announces those other, 8, 9, 10 players. I expect it to be a lot, but it's still early days in free agency. A lot of talent there. Agilities, I'm looking forward to seeing him on Vancouver. I'm looking forward to seeing maybe a Team Canada 2.0. And yeah,
I wish him the best.
Yeah.
So hey, that guys, we hope you like what we're chatting about. If you do, leave us a like, leave us a comment. Subscribe if you feel more inclined. If you want to hear anything, first about the Toronto Defiant. We are your premier #1 Toronto Defiant news source and chat talk radio thing podcast.
Nailed it.
So anyway, thanks.
All right. As always, guys, thank you and enjoy.